Welcome to Ken's Korner Podcast, Season 2. It's time. Are you ready? Now here we go with your host, Ken Judge.
Hi everyone, this is Ken from Ken's Korner. It's great to be back for Season 2. I want to thank everyone for a great finish to Season 1 and our host for our last one from Mary's Talk, Mary herself. I want to get right to it now, and I'm going to bring on a familiar face. He was my first podcast, Mr. Paul Hendrick. How are you doing today, sir?
Great, Ken. Thanks very much, and Happy New Year to you and all your listeners/viewers. There you go.
Thank you. It's been quite the journey, as you promised, and it's great to be to land back on your doorstep today, sir. Can we just? I just want to ask you a question here. How have you been since last May? Since the last time we talked, what have you been doing in your retirement?
I've got to think back. I've been going to Madrid on occasion. Got at least, well, we're back in May, but 5 months last year in Madrid. Got to escape the Canadian winter. I didn't miss any leaf hockey. In fact, I was able to stream all the games while I was over there, rather late. And when you consider a 7:07 start and Toronto's a 1:07 start in the Spanish capital. But when the club is good and it's entertaining and that fun to watch, you don't mind staying up. The British Columbia, California games are a little more difficult, but I usually find my way getting up to watch the third period early in a Spanish morning. So a lot of Spain, and I'm a big Blue Jay fan. I don't miss many of those games. In fact, I get down to the park quite often to watch those in person. And just basically hanging out and enjoying myself and my family, and that's it. But loving life and all it has to offer. So there we go, and excited to be participating as well with Dave Alter, former colleague of mine, in a podcast, Rink-Wide Toronto, and alongside Rob Wong as well. We'll split the duties with Dave in terms of talking Toronto Maple Leaf hockey and providing a perspective, at least, that I'm able to provide. And that's my time, 25 years with the hockey club, and some of the stories I'm able to regale with in terms of hosting, all-star skills competition with Joe Bowen back in 2000 when Toronto last hosted the game, things like that. So that's basically, Ken, what I've been up to.
That's great. I want to actually, since you talked about them, let's touch on the Blue Jays. What do you think of the changes that we've made this offseason?
A change of culture somewhat. It's been a very entertaining team to watch. They've got a shot, and that's all you can ask for. It's like the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've got a legitimate shot at winning it all. Only one team's going to be able to do it. Everyone else is going to be disappointed. But at least knowing that your club going into a season has an opportunity to compete in the tough American League East Division and possibly win it makes it exciting. But you just want to get in. I like the balance in terms of the hitting in the lineup. I think they're going to be a much better club defensively, and that in the long term might be the biggest thing. And if I'm a pitcher on that Blue Jay team, especially given the alterations of what they've done to the ballpark in Toronto, you're going to need a good club defensively. I love their outfield. I like the balance in the infield, and you've got two of the best catchers in the game. So just some question marks on the mound, but I think every team in Major League Baseball can be asking those very same questions. And if the club's able to stay healthy, I see no reason why not that they could be competing for a World Series come October, November next year. So I'm excited in that regard.
Yeah, myself also, sir. Now, it's I heard a funny quote, and well, it's true since you talk about our outfield defense. George Springer is now our third best outfielder, and that's amazing to hear, right? So
it is.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited for Varsho myself too, and he's also a catcher. So we now have 3 catchers and 4 really good outfielders. So
yeah, and again, Ken, if everything goes well on the mound, the hitting will take care of itself. I don't know if it was I say we're, but we're all Blue Jay fans. As far as you and I are concerned, and a lot of your viewers. I don't know if they're as good a hitting team as they were last year, but you don't necessarily have to be. The dimensions of the ballpark are going to certainly, help or maybe hinder depending on how you look at it. But they're going to be a club with just balance at the plate, but more so balanced defensively. And defense always wins championships. So that's pitching and that's strength right up the middle. And of course, in the outfield, they've got it all in terms of those three departments. So fingers crossed that all the key ingredients can stay healthy. There's no guarantees in that department. But right now, as we speak here in February, pitchers and catchers to report very soon. If you're a baseball fan and a Blue Jay fan, you've got reason to feel optimistic.
I agree, sir. Now let's get to your forte, sir. Let's touch on the state of the Toronto Maple Leafs. What do you well, my question, I guess, is, are you seeing Dubas taking a big swing? And if so, what is it that you think that we should address?
Well, first of all, let's just put into perspective where the club is at right now. If you were to say back in September that in February, if the Maple Leafs would have led the league in man games lost, including the core of their blue line, Jake Muzzin out an entire season, TJ Brodie, 22 games, Morgan Riley out 15 games, Timothy Liljegren, 11 games, and Rasmus Sandin, 5 games. That's 104 man games lost to injury amongst your top 7 defenders. We're not even talking Austin Matthews, and I'm not even talking about the fact that both their goaltenders, their starting 1A and 1B goaltenders have been hurt. If we were to say that and say you'd end up with a .673 win percentage after 50-plus games and the 5th best record in the National Hockey League, I'd be shocked. So I think the club is perfectly situated given where they're at. And even with all the injuries, especially to Austin, and we'll see what Matt Murray's ankle injury is all about, but they're in a soft part of the schedule. There's a good break time. I'm hopefully going to think that Austin's only going to be gone for 3 weeks, but if he needs more time, give him more time. I think the Bruins have run away with the division. I think home ice advantage is the next quest for Toronto in that opening round. So stay ahead of Tampa. That all said, I think what we've seen, especially in the last 2 games against Boston, that the team has to do something in terms of top 6. Get a top 6 left winger. That will bump Calle Jarnkrok down to the bottom 6 and in turn strengthen the bottom 6. So I also see an opportunity as well to strengthen the blue line. So I see 3 trades. I see 2 forwards and a defenseman before all is said and done come March 3rd. The other thing we've got to place into perspective, teams like Tampa Bay and Boston, they've not been hurt like the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs have had to face so much adversity. And to be where they are, given all the injuries, I think is commendable. I'm more than happy with the 2 goaltenders they have as long as they stay healthy. I don't want to go into the postseason with Joseph Woll, who's having a great year as the backup. I hope it doesn't come to that. Joseph's time is going to come. I just don't see it right yet. But I see the Maple Leafs in front of Matt and Ilya as defensively sound enough, especially with some help en route, to be able to make their life easier as a team. First of all, tries to win a playoff series for the first time in such a long time. And of course, then get to the second round and proceed from there. So I see 3 trades for Kyle Dubas, most notably up front where they need some help on the left side, and maybe even a bit of a score on the bottom 6. But I think a Calle Jarnkrok moving down will help in that regard. And they could use some depth on defense. All teams can. So that's where I see it heading toward March 3rd. So it's going to be a busy next 4 weeks for all general managers, including our own.
Yes. Now, do you see, I was going to ask you about Matthew Knies playing this season. Do you see him is he going to be involved in a trade of something in the top 6?
Might be. And you've got to say, okay, now Matthew Knies, depending on who you talk to, he should be a bona fide NHL player. Will he be a top 6 most, formidable player in that group? Nobody knows for sure. Will he help the club right away? Not really expected to do so. Then you've got to look at the Maple Leafs window of opportunity, given contracts and what will have to be signed and players kept in the next few years. And you think, well, maybe this is an opportunity that they've got to go for. So I think Matthew Knies is expendable. I also think the club's first round pick, which is going to be a high first round pick, so in effect a high second round, or a top ranked second round pick, I think it's up for grabs. Like a Travis Dermott would be a type player that they might get. Now, who knows? And Travis is a really good hockey player, but that's where the Leafs first round pick would be. I think it would be expendable if it's going to bring somebody back of substantiality in return to help out the club. And, the windows of opportunity, especially in Boston, very tight, not quite as tight in Toronto, but this is a great Maple Leaf club right now. And you'd hate to waste this season, given who they've got, by maybe holding on to a Matthew Knies or that first round pick. I think both will be in play, and both will have to be in play if the Leafs are going to bring back someone of interest to help this club in the remaining few months and hopefully a deep spring.
Yes. Now, I do have one fan question. You actually touched on it a little bit, and it's our goaltending of the season in our 1A, 1B. And JT from my fan page, he's actually part of my fan talk coming up later after the trade deadline. He wants to know what is your thoughts compared to what we've seen last year with Jack Campbell?
And Jack was good last year. He was much better than I thought. I know the second half of Jack's season wasn't what he would have liked it to have been, but I thought Jack was fine in the playoffs. I thought he played well enough for the Leafs to win that series against Tampa. No complaints whatsoever. The Leafs just didn't score enough goals, and especially in Game 4. I mean, Nick Paul gets a couple of goals. The Leafs held to one. The Tavares goal should have counted. It was the interference call in Hull on Justin, and but neither here nor there. The game's over. Leafs only scored one goal. So no, Campbell was good. We'll have to wait and see. I just think the club can, in front of Ilya Samsonov or Matt Murray, whoever it's going to be, is just much better prepared defensively. It's a major reason why the Leafs are where they are right now with the fifth best record in the National Hockey League. So I'm good with either of those two guys as long as they're healthy. I know Samsonov wasn't at his best against Boston prior to the All-Star break. He played a lot of hockey. He self-admittedly was under the weather in that particular game. I think he's going to be fine. I think Murray, if that ankle is good, should be fine as well. And I'm perfectly happy with the goaltending the Leafs have right now. And I don't see them going out to get another goaltender that might solidify some depth in that department, unless there's something wrong with Matt Murray that we don't know about, that they know about. The Leafs do, their medical staff and management, and they in fact have to go out and get someone. But if all things are considered equal, more than happy, just as I was with Jack Campbell last spring, to go with the duo Toronto has right now.
Yes, I agree with you 100% on that, sir. Now, I don't know if this is just kind of a throw in. I've been hearing all this craziness about Jacob Churchard changing his Twitter account, and now he just follows Matthews Marner. Do you see this as a lot of fans are hoping maybe a prediction or something in the leads towards him joining our team?
Well, that'd be great. I just don't know logistically what's going to have to happen to make that happen. And obviously there's going to have to be, that kind of salary coming in and his coming in. And I like the term of his contract. I think he'd be a fantastic add to this team. I just have to think that if Jacob Chychrun's coming to Toronto, that Erasmus Sandin might be on his way out. I'm not sure. It'd be fantastic, and maybe Jacob's just trying to push the envelope a little bit, or maybe he's just having some fun with social media. There's going to be so much of this going on over the next few weeks. The Bo Horvat trade people saying, hey, what do you think of that? And my first reaction is, I'm glad Boston or Tampa didn't get him. That to me is the big one. The Islanders can have him. There's a good chance Toronto's not going to see him anywhere down the line. But had Boston been able to get him, it'd be interesting. That said, Tampa has not much to play with. Boston's got a little more cap space to play with as well, but they too are up against it. Tampa's really up against it. And it's going to be interesting to see how this perceived arms race moves on, given what the clubs are doing with in terms of, contracts signed and salary cap and long-term injury relief and all of that. But to get back to Jacob Chikrin, love to see it, but if it's going to happen, I think there's a member of Toronto's top six defensively that would have to be going the other way to facilitate that deal happening, and might not be totally adverse to that happening either, given the fact it's Jacob Chikrin and his contract and the term remaining on it.
Now, this question's for my friend Frank, who actually lives in Tampa Bay. We have a bit of a nice little war going on between us. But I promised him I'd ask you, and you did touch on Tampa Bay being up against the cap. Do you see them adding, or are they happy with where they are, or can they even do anything at all?
Well, I think all of the above. I really think, I don't know how much they can do, but Julian Brisbois just some way, somehow manages, it's like the fishes and loaves situation and bringing, Jesus Christ to the picnic, and all of a sudden we're feeding the masses. I don't know how he's done it, but what, they're missing a couple of draft picks, first round picks moving forward. I don't know if there's much left on the shelves to accommodate what they want to do with this group. And the group as it is could be more than good enough to win a Stanley Cup. I mean, they've got the goaltending, they've got that, they got the defense and the star power up front. They may have to be happy with what they have, but Ken, I think with what they have, could be more than good enough to get the job done to get back to a fourth consecutive Cup final. So far, with the moves he's made, they've won 2 Stanley Cups. They lost a 3rd Stanley Cup, and they're in position to get to a 4th Stanley Cup. So I think if they stay the way they are and maintain the status quo, I think all is fine. I just don't know what they can do. It might be adding a piece in terms of bottom pairing defense or bottom 6, something along those lines in terms of adding depth. But you look at that roster, it's still pretty good. And John Cooper will have them ready come the spring, and he'll manage and massage until they get there. And then once they get there, they're going to be tough to beat. And it's going to be a hell of a first round series from Toronto's perspective. I think all you want is home ice advantage. Not that it matters as much these days, but if you could play 4 of those possible 7 games in your own building, I think they'll take it. And if last season's series is any indication, and it was paper thin, the difference between the two teams, it will be equally thin this time around. I just hope everybody is healthy going into it, and let's just sit back and enjoy it.
I agree. Now, I just wanted to touch a bit on what's going on out west. Colorado is a favorite again to win the Stanley Cup, but they're sitting outside of a playoff spot, I think, as of today. Do you think that continues with the way Seattle and Los Angeles, or does Edmonton or Calgary fall out of the race themselves?
That's a great question. I think in Edmonton, a lot depends on their goaltending and the job Skinner has done. He's certainly solidified a very tenuous situation, given just how tough a year it's been for Jack Campbell. But the Oilers have those stars. You talk about a window of opportunity. The West is not as good as the East, and for years it was the other way around. But now, there's an opportunity, if you do get in at any point in the West, that you can extend your playoff run a long way. I just don't think the Oilers are good enough right now as we speak defensively to make the run we speak of, but there's still a few weeks to go before the deadline, and I'm sure something will be done in that regard. You can never discount or count out the champions until they're done. They've had to put up with so many injuries. It's not going to be easy, but they've been there. And then you've got to factor in the Stanley Cup hangover, so to speak, and just how hard it is to get there, win the championship. And then, month and a half or so later, when all the celebrations have simmered down, you're back into training camp and everybody's after you because you've got the bullseye in your back. They'll try to replace Nazem Kadri as best they can, approaching the deadline. It's hard to lose somebody of his grit, his talent, and what he was able to bring and contribute despite injuries last spring. But I think that will be their main goal. I think they've got a chance to get in, and if they do get in, watch out. I think the West overall is just generally weaker, and that could count a team like Colorado getting back to the dance yet again. But they've got a steep mountain to climb. Seattle, I'm thrilled with Ron Francis and all they've been able to do. But it's going to be tough. It's the first time around for that franchise in this sort of exalted stratosphere. We'll see how long they can handle it. But, as Toronto fans and a lot of hockey fans out in Eastern North America have seen, they're a balanced hockey club. No superstars, but all four lines play just great two-way hockey, and they're balanced on their blue line as well. Not a marquee team, so to speak of, but a real true hockey team. And they could stick around long and give ourselves a nice Cinderella spring to talk about. So it's wide open out there. It's the Wild West, and it's wide open. And again, not as good as the East altogether, but somebody will come out of that, and it might be any of the four clubs you've talked about.
I agree. Now, I'm not going to ask you who you think is going to come out of there because that's so far away. But I will ask you. I do know. Well, we all know Toronto's going to end up playing Tampa Bay in the first round. Not too sure who's going to be first or second. Hopefully, the Leafs. Who do you see coming out of that series?
I see Toronto. I'm trying to think if we talked about it last year, and I think my prediction was Toronto in 6 games.
Yes.
And it should have been Toronto in 6 games. My good heavens. They lost game 6 in Tampa in overtime and a couple of wacky calls. The call in Kerfoot was just ridiculous. It happens. You can't predict that. Austin Matthews missing in overtime, the corner post by that much. They lead, 3-2 after 2 periods, and JT scored that beautiful goal to end the second period. I thought it was going to be done, but you're playing the defending champions, 2-time champions, and the education for the Maple Leafs continued, and back to Game 7. It came here. It shouldn't have come here for that. And Nick Paul, God bless him. That's why they got him. He played the game of his life, and it wasn't the stars on either side that got the job done in that particular night. It was the bottom 6 that got it done, and in particular for Tampa. And so I still say Toronto, and we should have this conversation again in a few months. But it'll go at least 6 games, most likely 7. I think the Leafs are going to win. I think their time is now in terms of finally getting that first round series off their backs. This core will have been together for 7 years, Ken. It's been a tough learning experience. There's been a lot of highs, but there's been some disappointing lows. And I think the club will have learned from those lows to know what it's going to take to get to the next level, providing they're able to stay healthy.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it. I've been on with the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs and Maple Leaf TV, Mr. Paul Hendrick. And this is a shout out to Gord Stellick and his corduroy coat that he had from his time with Paul in Detroit, I believe. Maybe Paul could tell us a little bit about that on his way out here.
Well, you were talking about possibly getting Gord on the podcast, and I said just say that Henny said make sure you wear that brown corduroy jacket that you bought in Detroit. This story back in '96, we co-hosted the games Leaf Midweek Hockey on Channel 11 CHCH, and Gord needed a clothing upgrade. And I remember we were in Detroit on the day of a game, and he went to a menswear shop not far from our team hotel and picked out this brown corduroy jacket that he got on sale. And he still chuckles when I bring it up. The fact that I would still even remember it, 26 years later, is funny. Like Gord's a knowledgeable, smart, witty, guy, and any chance I've got to fire something back his way, I'll always enjoy doing so. So that's basically it, going back in our careers.
Awesome, sir. Thank you. And I do want to give another shout out to my friends down at Special Ticket Entertainment. Come give Junior a call. I left the number before, but you're welcome to come down and say hi to us, or just look him up on specialticketentertainment.ca. And last season, I did forget to mention Theo Ivory. It was an amazing interview, and I want to be stand corrected with Jacques Rougeau's Wrestle Academy 2023, which is co-hosted by JP Marshall himself. Thank you, Paul. You have a great day. And this has been a great number one, and hopefully we'll see you again. I take that as an open invitation for you to come back sometime in May.
It's all about the journey, Ken. Thanks for the opportunity.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.